Nora Speaks is a weekly podcast that tugs at the soul and consciousness of the Black community. With show topics such as youth empowerment, education, women's impact, and civic engagement, Nora Speaks challenges the listener to not only join the movement, but be the movement. On the show, you'll learn from insightful guests who have demonstrated capacity in these fields and more, and I'm your host, Nora Muhammad. Welcome to the show. Welcome to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast, and I am your host, Nora Muhammad. It is always a pleasure and a privilege to be with you each week to share thoughts and commentary on current events, and there is a lot for us to talk about. Really, I think that this podcast really could be a daily show instead of a weekly show. There's, as I said, so much that's going on. There's so much that we have to talk about. There's so much that we have to dissect. Before I press record and I'm really thinking about what it is and what message specifically that I want to share across this platform for the particular episode, if I could have it my way, then I would kind of virtually shake our people to consciousness, shake our people into productive behaviors and productive thinking. But, change isn't made that way, and change is incremental, it's gradual. And, who am I to, cause anyone to change? And so anytime I'm out speaking, whether it's to, children, or if I'm out speaking to adults, I always strive to share that I'm not telling anybody what to do. I'm just sharing information. And then once you have the information, you and I are better informed in our decisions, and we're making or taking action from a place no longer of ignorance. Excuse me. So, for me, sharing what I know and what I believe on this platform is a responsibility. It's something that I believe that I'm obligated to do for my community. And I love serving my people. I love serving my community. And there's so many people who serve in so many different ways. And I salute everybody who is striving to make meaningful impacts in the lives of our children, in the lives of our elders, in the lives of our men and in our women. It takes a great commitment to be consistent. And not only does it take commitment, because we could be committed but have the wrong methodology, right? So not only does it take commitment, but it also takes a level of training. It takes some skill and some knowledge, and that isn't born overnight. And so we all have a journey that we take in our stages of development that produce, the people who are serving, that produce the people who are speaking, the people who are teaching our people. And so, again, I'm grateful that you're here with me and listening to what it is that I have to share and what words that I have to contribute to the ongoing conversation that we're having in terms of the issues that are impacting our community. And, we have the statues are coming down of Confederate soldiers, or Confederate generals, rather. We have statues that are coming down of individuals that we find, or many people find, offensive. We have statues that are going up or that are planned to go up, who have a less divisive history. Some who say have come down on the right side of history. But as I said in a previous episode, for me, a statue coming down isn't as significant as the policies and the processes and the legislation that is going to be enacted. A statue coming down is symbolic, but we need something that's substantial. We need something of substance, and it's something to think about. We have to be very careful that we are not being placated and we're not being pacified with these gestures, whether they are meaningful or whether they are meaningless. We have to be careful that we're not allowing ourselves to be pacified and kind of rocked back to sleep, rocked back to the slumber that we have been in. The Emancipation Proclamation was a law that was passed. It was a gesture. However, on the heels of the Emancipation Proclamation, we went from having slave codes to having black codes. We went to having laws that essentially made being black and the condition of being black a crime, right? So on one hand, we had a symbolic gesture, but on the other hand, we had actual legislation, laws that made our very existence and our just navigating through the world a crime. So when folks are looking at black people and they're saying, well, what is it that you want? They have an idea. They think that they know what we want, because when we are facing candidates who are looking to run in office or stay in office, when they're talking about black issues or what they think are black issues, when they're talking to the black community or about the black community, they say things like this to show that they have a black agenda, or to show that they have an agenda for black people, rather, and to have us think that they have us on mind. So they say things like criminal justice reform. They say things like jobs and bringing down unemployment rates. They say things like public safety, because they have an idea that what we're most concerned about is mass incarceration, and we are concerned about mass incarceration, and they think that we are, concerned about jobs, and we do have some concerns, obviously, about being able to have gainful and meaningful employment, and of course, public safety. But that's such a limited scope in the whole and wholeness of the black community. Not only do we need safety in our communities, not only do we need opportunities for jobs, and not only do we need reforms in the criminal justice system, but we need reforms in education. We need reforms in policies. We need, for example, recently there was a election in Kentucky, and they went from having 3,700 polling places to having under 100 or under 200 polling places in this. And you think, how can that be? And who is that most affecting? Right. So when we are electing leaders, when we are selecting leaders, whether that's our local organizers, whether that's our clergy members who are stepping up and speaking on behalf of social justice, they have to understand what it is that black people need, and they have to know how to put that forward. So, for example, there is now a movement about defunding the police department. Or police departments around the nation. And when I hear the words defund the police department, I think, what in the world are you talking about? We want public safety. And so they say, no, we're not saying that we don't want the police. We just want money reallocated to social services or education or other avenues to support the communities where the police are patrolling. Well, okay, now that sounds nice. Now, I like the idea of creating opportunities for funds to be funneled into supporting families and children in the community. But what leader came up with the tagline, defund the police? I mean, as a Black person, and I abhor police brutality. I abhor the over policing of the Black community. But the phrase defund the police, it doesn't ring for me. It doesn't sit well with me. And so I bring this up because it's an example of our leaders not necessarily being equipped to have certain conversations. And I think, how did that phrase defund the police get by PR, public relations, right? Who vetted that phrase defund the police? Because the idea of reallocating funds to support communities is wonderful. It's yes, let's do that. I'm with that. I support that. But who came up with that phrase? And they didn't say, wait, we're not going to say that. We're going to say this. And so now you have conversations where people have to stop and explain what it is that they're asking for, right? But your tagline should tell the people what you're asking for. So I say we have leaders that are not equipped to have conversations. And it's not a question of their sincerity. It's not a question of their commitment, but we do have to question the competence of some people. And we can't choose leaders because of their popularity. We can't choose leaders because of their passion, right? We have to choose leaders because of their effectiveness. And so many of us continue to witness the same issues that we've seen since the emancipation of slavery, right? The brutality that is levied out against Black life. And if we've had Black leaders from the point of the emancipation of slavery to and through 2020, and we are still faced with the same issues, we have to question our leadership. We have to question what our leaders have been asking for. We have to question how our leaders have been leading us. I think about sports teams, right? And if there's a coach or a general manager that comes out of a losing season, at the end of that season, all of the sports commentators are talking about that person being replaced. Where the sports commentators are talking about them firing that coach and getting somebody in who can turn the sports program around. So we've had leaders since the 1800s, the 1900s, who have not had the effectiveness or the know-how to resolve our problems. And we have leaders in academia. We have leaders in the political spectrum. We have leaders in policy. We have leaders in industry. I'm talking about Black people. But we continue to deal with decades old problems. Now that's a problem. So when we are looking at the analogy that I use of a sports team, they want to get that person out and get someone in who can produce what the people need, right? The people need a winning record. Black people, we need freedom, justice, and equality. And our current leaders and our past leaders have not been effective in bringing that about. Is it that their methods are wrong? Is it that their ask is wrong? Is it that they're not simply not qualified leaders? Is it that they're going to the wrong people and asking for the wrong things? So we do have to stop and question our leadership. And there's also conversations about, because it is common that white commentators and pundits try to use the divide narrative. So they say, well, you had the Malcolm X by any means necessary. And you had, the Dr. King who talked about love, right? So they want to put two so-called ideologies and men against each other, and they want us to pick a team. Well, I say they're all on our team, and maybe neither one of them were effective. Malcolm X was a leader or a leader to some, who did not produce what it is that he talked about when he was an independent leader. Now, I'll say when he was a follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, was the leader. And the message was, accept your own, be yourself, and do for self. And so when Malcolm X was under that leadership, he was definitely effective. But when he left that leadership, he did not produce any change. And I know that that part of the conversation is controversial because the same leader or the same person and the same personality years later, after white media and white political leaders and white press condemned the person after they impacted a person, then they want to repackage these same people and give them to us as leaders and put them on stamps as if they find these people to be acceptable. So the conversation about Malcolm X that you would have with me, you would probably find it controversial because I have the ability to go into the history of Malcolm X and what happened. And there's a narrative that has been pushed to Black people about Malcolm X in the Nation of Islam that is false and that is incomplete and that is inaccurate. And if you knew the history of Malcolm X and his leaving or being put out of the Nation of Islam, if that same scenario happened in your organization or in your family, you would understand why, as a Black woman, I'm saying that Malcolm X, having left the Nation of Islam and why he left the Nation of Islam, why he was put out, you wouldn't be satisfied with him as a person or as a leader in that capacity. So that's something maybe we'll talk about in a different episode. But just getting back to my original point, they want to put Black people against each other so that we can then take our attention away from the object of the discord, the object of the conflict, and put the conflict on each other. And so they'll have us arguing with each other over which method or which leader is the right one. And so I'll say again, neither Malcolm X in his independent operation nor Dr. Martin Luther King brought about freedom, justice, and equality for Black people. So going back, we need to choose a leader that can be effective. And we have currently leaders who you'll see on MSNBC or CNN or other media outlets who have books, who are college professors, and they'll come out and they'll talk and represent issues that are that impact the Black community, and neither have those who are in academia been able to resolve the problems that Black people face. So as it is with sports, we have to get rid of that coach. We have to get rid of that leader. And so we have people in place for decades and decades and decades who are not and who have not been effective. And so we have to really think about what is it that we want and what is it that Black people need. And I'll say here, as I've said before, that the greatest thing that Black people need is unity. We have to work together. We have to look to solve our own issues. And that's one of the major points of contention that we have with Caucasian people in this country. See, they understand that this nation was taken and it was developed for them and for their prosperity. We were not brought here, and we know this history, but I have to say we were not brought here so that we can enjoy freedom, justice, and equality, no matter what the textbooks are rewritten to say, that we were migrant workers coming from Africa looking for a job. This country was founded for them. And so, folks are questioning, what's going to happen in this election. And so do we think that Caucasian people who are disadvantaged by President Trump's policies will vote for somebody that will put policies forth that will benefit them if it benefits Black people as well? When these people vehemently oppose Blacks having freedom, justice, and equality? So we want to talk about, as we did with the last election, that Caucasian women did not vote in their interests. And I say, who are we to say what's in their interest? They only can say what's in their interest. And by the vote count, they voted their interests, and they're going to vote their interests again. So I say to Black people, well, what are our interests? And can we find our interests met in a vote? Or will we find our interests met in what we do collectively with one another, working in unity, being committed to that unity. It takes a lot to commit to unity for us when we have had a legacy of self-hating. We've had a legacy of depending on white people in this country, the leadership in this country. We've had a legacy of believing in the inferiority of black people in this country. We have a legacy of believing that it's not legitimized, or it's not legit if it has not been legitimized by Caucasian people in this country. So we have to really overcome serious hurdles in the black community when we commit to unity. But the only way we're going to have our issues resolved is by committing to unity. And that is what our leaders should be pushing for us to commit to unity. Now, I'll say that whether somebody is working in academia as a black person, whether a black person is working through the political system, wherever you are working, do what you can to advance the issues of our people, but do not believe that that is the solution for the issues for black people. Because while we are some of us are working over and trying to establish schools and trying to establish medical clinics so that we can get fair medical treatment, while some of us are working to establish a black economy where we're supporting each other so that we don't have to send our children out to stand in the employment lines when they're going to be the last hired or the first fired. While some of us are working there, in the meantime, we do need others in those political arenas, in those areas of academia, because black people are going to be there and we're going to be affected by policy. We're going to be in the educational institutions and we're going to be affected by policies and education and curriculum. So it's not all or nothing. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that we, wherever we are, we have to be committed to black unity and to the progress that we need, which will ultimately give us freedom, justice, and equality if we're really dedicated and committed to it. So at this point, they've taken down the statues. Now what? At this point, we have Black Lives Matter or defund the police murals on streets. Great. Now what? We have streets that are being renamed. We have the potential for Harriet Tubman to be on the $20 bill. Okay, but now what? How are black lives going to be improved? How are black people going to be safe in this country? What is going to impact that? And I have to say, Harriet Tubman on a $20 bill does not impact what we think about ourselves or what other people think about us. We are not going to pass a law and suddenly the people who have mistreated us are going to love us. It is not going to happen like that. So what is going to be the means of our protection? What is going to be the means of our progress? What is going to be the means for us to have equal opportunity? So great, we have some that are working in policies and legislation and in academia. That's great. But those of us at home on the ground, we have a role and we have a job to do as well. And we cannot work because we want to satisfy our former slave master. We have to work and commit to what's going to satisfy the needs of our people. So we need substance over symbolism. And going and screaming and shouting, look, okay, everybody has a role and everybody has a part that they can play. But once you put down the bullhorn, pick up a hammer and a nail. Once you put down the bullhorn, go in your pocket and dedicate some of your own financial resources, right? So we see where you're committed by where you put your time and where you put your money and where you put your energy. So show commitment and show dedication besides what's happening in the march, besides what's happening behind your bullhorn. Show the people that you're committed because of the sacrifice that you're making. And we, as Black people, have to think about the leaders that have been in front of us. We have to have conversations with those leaders because I've learned that to a large extent, we have so much misunderstanding amongst each other because, it's if you recall when you were in school and the teacher did that, I think it's called round robin, where you have 20 students or 15 students, and the teacher whispers something to the first student. By the time it gets to the 5th student, it's different. By the time it gets to the 10th student, it is different. And by the time it gets to the last student, the story is different. So we have legacies of misunderstanding because somebody said something about a leader, or they said that the leader said something about the people. So we have to have real conversations with each other, because I do know that there are those Black folks who are in positions of leadership or positions where they have access, where they can get in the rooms and stand up and speak on our behalf. But sometimes we don't support them because of a misperception, because we wish it was us in the room, and because we just have an awful issue of self-hatred and jealousy and envy in our community. So we have to support those who are in leadership, get to know them, and you may find that, wow, they do have our interests. We just never knew it because we didn't have a civilized conversation, and we let other people bring the narrative to us instead of getting it for ourselves. So I'll say that, we need substance over symbolism. And if your leader is only a leader that's leading you to symbols, then you need to pick a new leader. If your actions are only leading you to symbols, then we need to choose new actions. We have to commit to the unity that we need, no matter where our people are working, and we also can't condemn our people openly. We can have conversations behind closed doors, and we can argue in the best of manner behind closed doors, but we cannot come on the microphone, on the bullhorn, out before the world and condemn our people. I believe that, some things are family business, and that we never need to show others that we have weakness or disunity amongst us, because people are looking for that. They want that. They work hard to create that. And us, in our unfortunate self-hating stage of this part of our development, after 400 years of slavery, we are just so ripe for the opportunity for them to take advantage of it. So, let's put self-hatred down. Let's love ourselves and love our brothers and our sisters. Let's choose what's substantive, even though it's harder to get than what's symbolic. Let's work for it, and let's commit to our unity. I want to thank you for listening to this episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. I'm interested to know what you think about this episode, to know what you think about what's happening in the world, to know what you want to hear more about on this podcast. And you can email me your thoughts and questions you can email me at info@noraspeaks.com. That's info@noraspeaks.com. I'm excited for your questions and comments. Thank you to everyone who supports me, who listens to the podcast, who shares the podcast, who leaves great comments, who sends in great questions via email. I appreciate you all because I know that your time is valuable and your minds are valuable, and you allow me an opportunity to share what I think, and I appreciate that. So until next time, stay in peace. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Be on the lookout for a new episode coming at you fresh next week. And as always, if you want to learn more about me and the work that I do, visit my website, norahmuhammad.com. Or if you have a listener question, email me at info@noraspeaks.com. You can also follow the Nora Speaks podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nora Speaks Podcast. I'll be sure to include links in the show notes. If this show has value to you, please subscribe, rate, and review, and share it with family and friends. And be sure to check out previous episodes. And remember, don't just join the movement, be the movement. Stay in peace.